Hello, Amity City. It's 3 a.m. and we have a lot to talk about. At the end of our last broadcast, I had a call with a particularly agitated informant. Now, he's made it clear that I can't play any of his call tonight, but he gave me some incredible information that I have verified. I'm not sure I should be doing this tonight, or at all, but this story needs to be told. My source is a sanguinite, a vampire. He works with the Sanguine Mafia, though he refuses to tell me what he does for them. He gave me a list of vampire-owned businesses around the city, told me to go to one to see what the vampires are up to around the boroughs. I asked him what specifically to look out for or do with this information. He told me to find my way into the basement at Red and Rare. For those not in the know, Red and Rare is one of the highest-end restaurants in town. In retrospect, the name is really on the nose. It was opened 67 years ago by Ramon Maladze. It is currently run by his son, Ramon Maladze II, who, frankly, there is no evidence of him being a different person, so let's not play around like he is. It's a steakhouse. Serves expensive wine, opens at sunset, closes at sunrise. The mayor had a party there when she was elected. Being entirely honest, I wasn't sure how I was going to get into that place, especially how I would get into restricted areas. If my contact is right, not only is it a mafia establishment, it's a mafia establishment full of vampires. Bruno and I went home, put on my nicest dress. I even did my makeup. I grabbed the deck of cards, a kitchen knife that I buried in my purse, and off we went to Northwest Bridge. We took a cab. I could have taken the PACFA, but I figured rolling up in a cab looked at least a little bit more like I could afford to eat there. The ride across Hatbridge was nice. There's a street fair right now, celebrating that winter is almost over, so I rolled the window down to listen to some music at a stoplight. When we crossed the St. Maura Bridge into Portbridge, the vibes changed. From electric to jazz. The hipsters were all out clubbing, and the standard families were all in bed in their brownstones. Finally, the apartment buildings became office towers. Westbridge was dead. No businessman would be caught dead in that snowstorm. The clubs were all playing loud music to crowds of ghosts. The heart of the city of dreamers had fallen silent. I'm sure there were some spots that were happening, but when we pulled up to Red and Rare, it was quiet. The taxi driver was an Ostrad man with a thick accent. He asked if I was sure this was the place, and I thanked him. I tipped him half my rent. I figured if I died in there, I wouldn't need it. If you're a long-time listener, you know I don't scare easily. But I will admit I was worried. Bruno started purring and rubbing against my cheek as we walked in so that I didn't have a panic attack and lose my grip. I was wearing him like a scarf. He's a regal enough cat. Inside, the host was a college-aged girl, breathing. She took me to a table on the second floor so that I could look out at the bay while I ate. The restaurant was empty outside of the staff, which made my job a whole lot harder. Easy to slip away on a busy night. Nearly impossible to abscond into the kitchen on a slow one. The kitchen was one floor down. The basement was likely only accessible through there. I pulled a card from the deck, just kind of hoping. I cut my thumb and rubbed the blood on the card. This had worked out in my favor before. Maybe I'm just lucky. Bruno hopped to the seat across from mine. A waiter walked up, looked at Bruno in the seat across from me, then looked at me. He asked if we were twins. When I ordered for me and my twin the cat, I ran off, assuming Bruno was a charming enough conversationalist that he could just sit there and stay safe while I snuck away. I looked at Bruno's reflection in the window. He was me, even had his own little cat scarf. I decided not to question it and ran for the kitchen. Maybe the card made Bruno look like me, or put an image of me over Bruno. I don't know. When I reached the kitchen, I peeked through the door. A chef, a few other staff members. It was a slow night, so I guess they didn't feel the need to have too many people getting paid to sit around and feed my cat food that I can't afford. I decided there was little harm in drawing another card. My thumb was still bleeding, so the piece of paper immediately activated and burned into ash. As far as I can ascertain, the deck has 52 cards, each with their own effect on the world around me. I hadn't come across one that detonates a grenade 3 inches from me, or makes everyone's organs spontaneously melt, so what damage could I really do? The symbol on this one was a lipstick mark. I touched my face, assuming it magically gave me better makeup, but to my surprise, it didn't feel like anything had changed. I had come too far and spent too much money to turn back now, so I walked inside the kitchen. The chef turned around and immediately got excited. He called me Winona, acted like I belonged there, so I just went along with it, and told him I needed to go downstairs. He asked if I was there to see Marco. I said yes, like a liar, and he led me into the walk-in freezer. Hanging from all corners were corpses. Young, old, wealthy, poor, men, women, hanging. Missing limbs, some of them still alive and freezing to death. I tried to keep myself from losing my lunch, and the chef turned around, offering for me to feed on a young boy. He said they brought him in just for me. Whoever Winona is, seemingly she only feeds on kids. I told him I had eaten before I arrived and thanked him, which he found odd. Then all at once it was like he could actually see me. He tried to scream, so I punched him in the face. I wish I could say that knocked him out cold, but we fought in the freezer for maybe 8 minutes. I finally knocked him out by hitting him in the head with a bottle of vodka that was on the floor. On the other side of the walk-in was a door labeled basement. I collected myself, fixed my hair, kicked him in the stomach for good measure, and went inside. Down a staircase that felt like it should be in a mall, stark and corporate and quiet. At the bottom was a large man, who greeted me in the same way. Winona. He opened the door and let me pass without me even having to bluff. I caught my reflection in the sunglasses he was wearing indoors at night. I was an entirely different woman. But I guess it only works if my lies are convincing. No idea how I became the perfect person for this situation, though. On the other side of the... Right. We need to run ads and music. I got carried away. This story only gets worse. Architect is launching its new wave of high-end PCs and laptops. With high-end graphics cards and our new DuraCold technology, not only can these new computers run anything you please, but they can stay cool and steady the whole time. This month only, any Architect 4XI or DT50 is 45% off at any participating store. Get yourself an Architect computer today.
Stallion, hardy and resilient, robust and clean, the finest cigarettes in the world grown in New Soven for your enjoyment. Try all new Stallion Silver, with the same tobacco taste but with an added flavour of sage and other herbs. Stallion cigarettes, run wild.
Stallions suck. Trust me on that one. More than other cigarettes, anyways. This next song is Find Me by Frida Moran. The weather tonight is a miserable 12 degrees as winter throws one last tantrum before spring comes. It's snowing, and all traffic in the boroughs is a nightmare tonight, so it would be best to stay indoors if you can. For my truckers and dock workers in the audience, the E5 bypass is pretty clear if you think you can get your rigs through it. The news today is that some random guy decided to call in a bomb threat at the Amity Fine Arts Museum. Police now have the man in custody. Alright, back to the investigation. Through the door was a casino. Massive. Table games only, but I counted at least 30 places to gamble away your money. As I walked across the floor to a bar at the back, I noticed a few unbreathing patrons weren't gambling with chips. They had nothing in front of them but their cards. At first I thought this was some lame, zero-stakes void play, but then I overheard a young man bet an entire city block on his cards. The dealer seemed to accept this. 43rd Street's people sold on cards in a basement in Westbridge. At the bar, I stood quietly, watching the room. A tall, thin man with exhausted eyes approached me. Apparently he didn't know Winona, because he spoke to me as though he could tell I didn't belong here, but not in a threatening way. He explained that these vampires are gambling territory, which as a new sanguinite I had nothing to barter with. He explained that if you win, you get to take some of the Eltere's territory. If you lose, they take some of yours. I asked what an Eltere is, and he told me it was the boss. He let me know that I should work on introducing myself to her. Apparently she's supposed to know about every new vampire born in or entering her city, but he said my secret was safe with him for the night. He explained that Amity City, the boroughs, all have their own underboss, and each major neighborhood has its own underboss, but everyone answers to the Eltere. I watched around the room, a few human waitstaff members wandering the aisles, letting the vampires too busy gambling to get their own drinks to bite into their wrists. There was this look on their faces of extreme fugue, like it felt numb, like they were disassociating. I couldn't tell if it was consensual, if they signed up for this job knowing they would be bit hundreds of times a night by strangers in a creepy basement. My new friend decided I was worried about infection. He told me that the human staff takes some pill developed by Cardiac Pharmaceuticals that makes it harder for them to get vampire sickness or whatever. I guess that's how you become one. I asked how often it happens to the staff, and he said about 4 a month become undead. I wanted to ask him more questions, but I had no idea how much longer Winona's face would be available for me to rent, so I excused myself and snuck towards the door to what I assumed was the bar storeroom. No one was guarding it. I suppose any undead who found their way back there is already allowed to freely feed off the staff, so why not let them steal a bottle or two? The storeroom was a nightmare. Living people, bound to walls, being slowly drained, their blood flowing into bottles and barrels. I didn't manage to keep my stomach this time. The room reeked of wrought iron and mildew, like the blood was becoming a moldy fog that danced around the room. I tried to free someone, but their chains were locked, and I didn't know how to securely pull all of the tubes out of their body in a way that wouldn't just kill them. I counted 20 living people being drained like this. Some on IV drips of street drugs, forced to slowly bleed out, high as can be. Maybe it gets the vampire high to drink from an intoxicated target. Maybe it's just a sick way to kill someone. I turned around to leave, and someone was blocking my exit. He wasn't breathing, staring at me. I tried to masquerade as Winona. I told him I was there to see if they had any bottles of young blood, and he laughed, pointing at my chest. He said he could hear my heart beating. I panicked and started to run, but the storeroom had no other exits, and he was fast. In seconds, he was on my back, tackling me to the ground. I heard him let out an odd hiss, my shoulders pinned to the concrete floor. Then he stopped short and fell off of me. The fear had frozen me, but someone yelled my name. Not Winona, Claire. So I whipped around. A person wearing a hood and a black bandana over his mouth offered me his hand. I took it, but quickly noticed it was ice cold. He wasn't breathing. Without a word, he guided me to the door. Seemingly every vampire in the casino could hear my heart beating. Every single one knew a terrified human was nearby and not being tapped for all her blood. We emerged into the casino, and it became pandemonium. My rescuer kept exploding into black smoke, appearing somewhere else nearby, a knife in one hand and a strange pistol that I couldn't find a match for after the fact in the other. He killed everyone. But not unharmed. One vampire dug her nails into her palms and turned her blood into spears. Another punched him so hard he flew through 3 wooden tables, destroying all of them. When the violence was over, he had killed 27 of his own kind and 7 humans who got in the way. He gestured for me to follow him. We ran back up the stairs to the kitchen, where he handed me his hoodie. He was the man from the bar earlier. Then he ran off back towards the casino without a word. I threw on the blood-covered jacket and rapidly left the kitchen. I guess the staff know better than to question someone leaving the basement covered in blood. I grabbed Bruno and we left, dining and dashing on the vampiric venue that I couldn't afford on 3 times my salary. Let's run our last ad break. It's getting late, isn't it? It's getting cold. It's okay. All things end. So why not leave your family whatever you can to keep them warm? We at Grand Redonian Insurance want to help you get set up with the best life insurance possible to make sure that your family doesn't follow you into the cold forever. Just think about it, okay? Grand Redonian Insurance. Better to be prepared. You ever want to fly like a bird gracing the sky? The Redonian Air Brigade needs pilots. Overseas, our soldiers need their eyes overhead. They need their air support, and they need their enemies smited with lightning from above. Redonian Air Brigade pilots are 90% more likely to be hired as commercial pilots once they retire from service. Come show the enemy why Redonia is the land of the hawk. Join the Air Brigade. Bring the thunder. Life insurance. That's ironic. Or maybe it's just honest. How much longer can I do this? I know we normally have another musical break, but I need to be entirely upfront about something. I try to be empathetic towards everyone. The occult, normal people. I try so hard because I honestly think we can all find a way to live in peace. I think we can just put our differences aside. I'm sure people can find a way to facilitate and aid the things that lurk in the shadows, make their suffering bearable, the same things we should be doing for one another, but I just don't know. My contact, who I assume was the guy from the bar, he killed everything in his path to get me out of there. The Sanguinites in that casino had to pass the bodies in the freezer to get down there. They all know there is a torture chamber behind the bar. Is my empathy entirely misplaced? Can I really promise redemption to that? Maybe it's like the police or the government, an institution so deeply ingrained that it can't be torn down. Maybe it's biological. I've never felt so much suffering in one place. I can still hear their heartbeats every moment of every day. I can hear their hearts slowly fading in that basement. I could hear it before, I just never knew what it was until now. I hear every mugging, every first kiss, the rising and falling heartbeats of an entire city all day. But now I have to hear those ones and know what's going on. I don't know what to do with this one. This pain. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are really just monsters. Good morning, Amity City. Go get some coffee. It's going to be a long day. And if you're one of the city's 320,000 vampires, if you're better than what I saw, prove it. Be better. Amity After Dark is an unfiction horror podcast produced by Livewire Stories. This show is written and produced by Gwen Fullman. Claire White is played by Gwen Fullman. Mark is voiced by Theo. Advertisers 1 and 2 were voiced by Gwen Fullman. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, please consider subscribing to our Patreon at Livewire Multimedia Stories to receive episodes a week early for only $2 a month. Check out our website at livewiretabletop.wixsite.com/livewire. Subscribe to us on YouTube or join our Discord in the description below. The best way you can support us is to show this to a friend. Thank you. And a special thanks to our Patreon patrons who make all of this possible.